With an extreme effort of will, the half-orc's hand closes around his holy symbol to the unicorn, and as it does so, that fear that had paralyzed him through the combat melts away, to be replaced by a burning rage of Grumsh. He draws his shield hand across the wound on his chest, licks the blood off and spits it angrily on the floor, turning to face his adversary. Is that the best you can do, Wolfman? My turn. Drawing his finger across the blade of his war-pick, he intones, by root, by shoot, by branch and briar, ensnare this foe with nature's wire. Thorns twist and writhe on the blade as he swings it back and attacks, following up with a sudden counter-strike. This is how I like to describe combat in a role-playing game. Alternatively, I could just have said, I make my saving throw against fear. As a bonus action, I cast Ensnaring Strike, and I'll attack twice. But by describing what you do, rather than just saying what you intend, you're much better able to create a picture in your own mind and the mind of the other players to create a much more immersive and imaginative experience for us all. And this is the kind of game I love. Different players play role-playing games for different reasons. They like different things in a game. Some love to solve a mystery and investigate. Others like a tactical challenge in battle and are more concerned about where you move and how you respond to each threat, and are less concerned about the description. Some love deep negotiation as a chance to reveal their character and interact with NPCs in the world. Others like exploration. I like all these elements because they add variety and depth to the game and help me care more about the setting. But in essence, for me, I like sci-fi and fantasy films because essentially they are action-driven. There may be deep characterization and wondrous worlds to discover and experience, but deep down, for me, they are conflict-driven, and the underlying conflict needs to be resolved in combat. Fantasy and sci-fi role-playing games for me are the same. If you look at the player's handbook, at least 50% of the rules in the player's handbook are dealing with things that occur in combat. And I love to create an immersive, engaging combat. But how can I do it? For some players I've come across in the one-shot group, fluently describing combat and what happens around their characters seems almost effortless. Players like Andrew Knapp and Philip Posey are brilliant. They're creative balls of energy and effortlessly express their character and create the world around them. But for me and for others, I think it's not so easy. Perhaps we have less experience, and a little preparation goes a long way, I think. If you think about typical situations you will come across in combat, it helps you need not follow exactly your preparation, but you can improvise a lot more easily when your character finds himself in combat. So there are a few steps in combat that typically come up that I like to think about how I would describe in a combat. First is the attack. What is your weapon? And how do you move when you attack? For example, a swashbuckler might have a very finely wrought rapier with a basket hilt and the name of an ex-girlfriend etched on the blade. He may be almost like a statue as he stands there, hardly moving, economical and efficient, except for the insults pouring from his mouth. Alternatively, my half-orc paladin, he has dreads full of flowers, and as he moves, these dreads bounce, and the flowers, the daisies, scatter out as he lunges at you with his heavy war-pick, his spiked club, Gravebriar. Think about try to personalize your weapon and the movement of your attack so it gets across character. Another thing is how do you react when you take damage? You're bound to get hit. Do you just grunt and say, my grandmother could hit harder than that? Do you actually feel the pain? Oof. But silently resolve to continue. You'll need to do better than that, foe. Or you fight well, but not well enough. Lay down your weapons. This is your last chance. I've received worse paper cuts than that. Just think of a little throwaway line, either as a reaction or a kind of riposte to react to taking damage. That was an example of minor damage, but also think how you'll react to serious damage. React to being unconscious. Even falling unconscious you can describe and bring out an element of your character when you do it. For me, another essential thing to consider is, I say casting spells, but I include in this all class features or special features that you can do. I am slightly inspired in this by Nerdarchy's video on how to create immersive combat, how to keep combat interesting. They suggest that a GM shouldn't name a monster that the players encounter, should just describe it. I go for the same tactic with my spells and my class abilities. I don't name what I'm doing. Maybe to the GM I'll secretly name, but I just describe what my character does and what effects the other players will see, what effects the other characters will see. I have, for example, for all my spells, I've come up with the verbal component. It may be mumbo jumbo, or it may be a little rhyme, or a bit of alliterative language. By root, by shoot, by branch and briar, ensnare this foe in nature's wire. Or taking a vial of silver glowing water from my backpack, he says, by dawn, by dew, by sprouting and hatching, Calebdur, Calebgrash, Baile, Gnethor. And he splashes a little bit of the liquid in the eyes of his allies. And as the eye wash affects them, they feel their senses becoming sharper, and they feel blessed. They gain plus D4 on all attack rolls and saving throws for the next minute, while Gel Amakir, you can see that he's concentrating because the tip of his tongue is sticking out slightly. This is an example of my Bless spell. Every special effect, you can think of a way to describe it to make it more vivid. Now, I don't suggest that you actually describe it in full if you repeat and repeat that spell. That would just make it a time waste. Let other players have their turn too. But having described it for the first time, the next time you can do it is my paladin casts Ensnaring Strike. You see the thorns writhing on his blade. Similarly, do the same for class abilities. I have them for channeling. I have one for divine strike, etc. It could be for your rogue sneak attack. It could be for how your barbarian goes into his rage. Everything that your character can do, think about how, not just saying I will do this, but describe what the other players see when that happens, and it makes for a much more vivid combat. This is the kind of role-playing I love anyway, and it's the kind of role-playing I've discovered on the one-shot group. I encourage you to give it a go. Look on Facebook, find the one-shot group, and try to join a game there. I hope to see you in one. My name's Caius, and I love role-playing games.